Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados.
Because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alicia.
And I'm Nathan.
And welcome to episode 97 of Adventures and Mousecapades. Today, we're going to sit in the warm afterglow of having seen the touring Broadway performance of Hadestown.
Wow, what a show.
It was very good.
That was so amazing. We tried to go, well, we had tickets to go, a year and a half ago?
2022. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they canceled our performance about 45 minutes before curtain time. Like, we were literally at the corner, like parking the car.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a notification that was canceled because too many of the cast members had come down with COVID and they couldn't put the show on. So, yeah. But we got to see it last night, and holy cow, that was awesome.
Good. The musicians, the trombonist, her name was Emily. Wow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
All of everything, like top to bottom, every single cast member, every single musician was just on their A game. It was so good.
Yeah. Music is astounding too. Loved it.
Yeah. Fantastic. We'll do it again.
We could go on and on and on about it, but today we're not actually talking about Hadestown, other than what we just said.
Right.
We are going to do a real quick comparison of DCL versus RCI, Disney Cruise Line versus Royal Caribbean International.
Indeed. So we have sampled both now. Obviously, we haven't sailed a ton on Royal Caribbean. We've only been on one cruise.
There you go, just once.
Right. It was a 9-night cruise, but we haven't sampled a bunch of the different ships. Like Royal has a fleet of like 20 or 25 ships. There's 4 or 5 different classes or designs of ships at this point. So we're trying to extrapolate as much as possible, but obviously leave the caveat of, your mileage may vary depending on itinerary, depending on ship, depending on lots of stuff. But I think we did get a really good overview of what a Royal Caribbean experience is like. And so, we're going to compare that against Disney Cruise Line. As a reminder, we have sailed on DCL a lot. We are both platinum.
Which means we've sailed over 10 cruises each.
Yes. I think we're in the 14 range?
Yeah, somewhere
14,
around
15,
there.
13, 14, or 14, 15, something in that range. And we'll be padding a whole bunch of to that list in the next 6 to 9 months. So we like DCL. And there's a bunch of stuff that we really liked about Royal too. So let's compare and contrast.
So overall ship look, layout, and upkeep. I would say that we're comparing this mostly, so the RCI ship we were on was the Ovation of the Seas. And I think this most closely aligns with the Disney Dream and the Disney Fantasy.
Agreed.
And we've been on the Disney Fantasy multiple times. We have not been on the Dream yet. So our comparisons are going to be against the Disney Fantasy for the most part.
Right.
I guess Wish would have the same amount of people too, kind of.
Wish is the same amount of people, but the Wish is actually a physically bigger ship by like 20 or 25%.
Okay.
Even though the room and guest count is the same, it's a bigger ship. I think the Fantasy is probably the right place to put this in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
But I think in general, I was impressed with what we saw in Royal in terms of upkeep of the ship and in terms of like cleanliness. I'd say the decor is very different from Disney. It is more, I think I wrote down here, glamtastic. Like it is kind of more of a almost Vegas-y vibe of what's going on in the ship, sorta.
Somewhat, not as kitschy and flashy, though. It is more glamorous rather than, it's the glamorous side of Vegas, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the expensive end of the strip. I will say, though, the elevators were broken like a lot. In fact, I think 2 of them never worked the whole time that we were on the cruise. and there was some stuff like that. I think the comparison to Disney is like Disney, at least for us, has been immaculate, like high attention to detail all the time. And I know going into the most recent dry dock rather for the Disney Magic, they had some stuff that was needing repair and needing refurbishing. And so it had kind of deteriorated a little bit, but frankly, we've toured like a Norwegian cruise line ship this past summer, and that was just about the same age, if not much newer than, for sure, the Fantasy. But I think this Royal Caribbean ship is a little older than that one. And like the Norwegian ship looked like it had been through the ringer and was, a couple decades old, and it was only built in 2018.
Yeah.
So,
no, this ship looked good. I can't remember how old it was, but cleanliness was nice. Just the overall look was good. The layout of it was pretty easy to follow as well. There's a couple of times we got turned around, like just getting out of the elevator, but it was a very fast, oh no, we need to go the other direction.
When she says a couple of times, it was pretty much every time we came down off the elevator into the main kind of like promenade. We always guessed wrong in which direction we needed to be going. Any ship you go on will have a learning curve, and it got easier. I think a lot of that is the complaints that we heard in the Disney community about the Wish being difficult to navigate is just because, no, it's a completely different layout from the other 4 original ships from DCL. And you just got to get used to it. I didn't think either was a problem. Yeah. I thought the Royal ship looked great. I thought the styling and everything was fantastic. It was good. I don't know that I could give a preference of Disney versus Royal Caribbean given on, just based on the overall ship and things like that. I think there may be some more attention to cleanliness and detail on the outside of the ship from Disney. Like they're always washing all the windows and all the rest of that stuff. And it didn't seem like we got that from Royal. Like even getting on embarkation day, like all of our windows and the glass in our veranda was very salted and so there's stuff like that, but I wouldn't ding RCI. I'd say it's good, and probably Disney's maybe a touch above.
Mm-hmm. The art on both of the ships is very different. I mean, Disney is obviously Disney-centric.
Right.
And Royal had some very interesting art installations. I did like that they had such a huge variety of styles for art.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that we had to get pictures of because it was just so amazing and so different from anything that we've seen before.
Yes. And interesting, we don't have it on here, but speaking of art, I think the art that they had for sale and available, they had all sorts of art auctions and things like that going on of lots of different styles and everything on the Royal ship. Whereas Disney used to be really good, and it's kind of been pared down. And I would give the win to Royal in terms of like that artwork overall. I think Disney has some great Disney stuff, but I really enjoyed the variety of media, of quality of implementation, and what was available. Like if you wanted to walk off the ship with some art, Royal hands down was better.
And interestingly enough, there was a lot of Disney art on RCI as well.
Yes.
There was some Star Wars stuff. There was, of course, Thomas Kincaid's Disney series, bunch of different stuff from that, and some not from him as well. I know Nathan's shaking his head. He's not a fan of Thomas Kincaid, the painter of light. No. I think he does a great job, but that's just me.
I think he does a remarkable job of marketing his very kitschy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll give him credit for that.
There you go. Now, embarkation and debarkation. For this one, Disney wins hands down.
Yeah, just like no brainer. Disney. Our embarkation was it was a miracle that it went as smoothly for us as it did.
Yeah. We just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
Right. I have no idea I have no idea how we got that to work.
Yeah. Now, we have done Disney embarkations many, many times, but you would think that would kind of give us an up on embarking on a different cruise line.
Right.
It did not.
No.
We had no idea.
And we've done Disney embarkations at lots of different ports. So you can't say like, oh, this isn't like a dedicated Royal port. Well, we've sailed Disney out of New Orleans and San Diego and like all these other places.
Miami, Port Canaveral.
Right. Well, Port Canaveral, you at least have your own Disney building.
We've gone out of Vancouver, the same port.
Right. Yes, that's right. I forgot about that. And it was nowhere near as discombobulated.
No. I know we talked about the embarkation on an earlier podcast, how long it was for people just sitting and waiting, the lines. And I don't know is it like that every ship that they do for Royal, or it seemed like a lot of unnecessary waiting. Now, do they have port arrival times? Do you know? I know with Disney, you have specific times that you are supposed to be at the port, and they won't let you on before that. I don't know if Royal has that or not.
I think they do. I can't remember. So we originally had signed up for the Key, and then we got a Royal Up bid that we won to get into a concierge suite, and so we automatically had the first. Basically, you could just show up and get on whenever you want. So
what do those terms mean? We have the Key. What is that?
Yeah, so the Key on Royal Caribbean is an upcharge package that gives you access to the internet package for the length of your cruise. It gives you priority embarkation and debarkation before and after your cruise. It gives you priority seating, if I remember correctly, in the shows. I think there's a few other things like that. Yeah, priority tendering if you're at a tender port. It gives you that kind of stuff, which is kind of nice because the only way you get that on Disney is if you are in concierge, right? Other than that, you are getting whatever port arrival time you get, which is based on when you check in 30 days in advance. And then if you want the internet package, you're buying the internet package unless you're in concierge, and then it's included in your room. So, it kind of is a way to get some of those perks without spending a concierge room kind of thing.
For Royal.
Now, the other thing I mentioned was the Royal Up program, which is kind of a more organized way of them selling off their more expensive suites and rooms on the ship to folks who are already on board. So we had initially booked a junior suite, and we'll kind of cover this down the line, but it's basically the size of a normal stateroom on Disney, maybe a little touch bigger, but it's very comparable. And they had a bunch of grand suites and deluxe this and owner's suites and like all sorts of stuff that were available that hadn't been booked on our cruise. And so up through like a couple weeks before the cruise, you can put in a bid and say, hey, I'll pay X amount a person above what I've already given you. And if that, if you win that bid, then you get that room for that price. So that it's, on Disney, we've been able to do that by showing up at the port at the crack of dawn and getting first in line, and they happen to have a suite open and we were able to upgrade in port.
Which you can't do anymore.
No, you can't do that anymore.
No.
So it is a package. I with both of these, I think this is an opportunity that Disney has to explore. Now they're going to get dinged because it's more upcharge and people are going to say, oh, you're just asking more money for stuff. But yeah, they are. Yeah. But it's something they may want to explore. It's definitely where Royal Caribbean kind of has an edge. That said, I think Disney sailings by and large sell out a heck of a lot more, especially the larger concierge rooms.
That's true.
And so it may be applicable if you have an inside stateroom and you want to bid on an ocean view or a veranda, or from an ocean view to a veranda. I don't think you're going to see very many opportunities to get from like a veranda up into like a concierge room or a concierge suite, because those are pretty much always booked out.
Yeah. With the room that we got, we were able to do embarkation check-in with somebody, I guess, is what we did. We were walking by and I saw a kiosk and I was like, hey, that says us.
Yeah, it says concierge
Suite,
check-in, suite check-in. So it worked out. And we talked about that on the last episode. So if you want to figure out how this kind of worked in practice, go back and listen to, I believe it was last week's episode, or no, 2 weeks ago. And you'll hear more all about that.
Yeah.
Episode 95. But yeah, I would say the logistics side of it, Royal has some cool programs that I'd love to see Disney explore and consider. But the actual logistics day of, Disney is way more coordinated.
Yeah. Yeah. We were a bit confused on that. Debarkation was simple.
It was simple. Now we had priority again. And we literally just showed up to, they wanted us to meet by one of the upcharge restaurants, and we didn't have a line. And so we showed up, and the concierge host just escorted us right off, and we cut in line for a bunch of other folks who were doing priority debarkation, like without baggage assistance, and they were hauling their own stuff off. We just merged into all that, and it was stupid simple to get off. So, so yeah, there's some pluses and minuses. I think Disney handles it better. I'd love to see Disney pick up some of these program options. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
It would be great. Staff.
This is a push.
This is definitely a push.
Yeah.
I think there's fantastic staff on both cruise lines.
Yeah.
I don't have any concerns about the friendliness or the helpfulness of the staff in general on both ships. We did have an experience with laundry on the Royal ship, and we had some staff help us out, and they didn't go that extra mile like you'd expect to see Disney. Like, we had an issue that was kind of two parts. They solved one part and kind of said good luck for part two, whereas Disney would have been on top of it.
Yeah.
I question whether that issue would have happened in the first place on Disney. But like, you're always going to find areas for improvement, no matter where you are. But I'd say in general, we found fantastic crew members on both cruise lines. Yeah.
Food.
This is a big one. There's a lot to cover here.
Food is extremely subjective. There are varying opinions based on your taste and everything.
Yep.
Main dining, we tried once.
Yeah.
And that was it.
We had no desire to try that again. Yeah. This was on Royal.
Yeah, on Royal. Yeah. And we have talked to other people that have said the main dining on this particular cruise was not good.
Yeah. I concur.
Yeah.
Not impressed. Now, we've had a cruise, our first cruise on the Fantasy post-pandemic was pretty iffy on main dining food quality.
Yeah, I don't think it was as poor as it was on this one.
Yes, agreed.
Now, it wasn't like bad. It was still, it was okay. It just wasn't the quality I was expecting.
Right.
I realize it's a conveyor belt, whatever you call that.
Right. It is an industrial kitchen.
Yes. And we toured it.
Yeah.
But what we got there, I was not expecting it to be that quality.
No.
For upcharge and specialty dining, this was kind of hit or miss, honestly.
Yeah. So on Disney, you have Palo or Palo Steakhouse. You've got Remy or Enchanté, kind of depending on which ship you're on. These are all fantastic, amazing restaurants that I will recommend carte blanche. Like, just go. These are amazing meals. On Royal, they're different upcharge restaurants depending on the ship. On the one that we were on, we had Jamie's Italian, which Jamie being Jamie Oliver, the British chef. So you have a British chef's take on Italian cuisine. Sure. You have Chops Grill, which is steakhouse. You have Wonderland, which was kind of a more avant-garde, adventurous kind of cuisine. You have Izumi, which is a Japanese restaurant. And then you have Chef's Table, which was kind of like a premium, multi-course, fine dining experience, but it's just one big table. So I think there was maybe 16 to 20 tops that were at that table. I would compare Chef's Table to something like our experiences at Remy, although like our dinner at Remy was kind of, it's just us at a table versus kind of a more communal thing. But that kind of quality and experience and multi-course and like, it's just, that's to me where that was.
Yeah. I don't think it's quite as elevated as Remy is. It's
it's not as fancy.
Yeah. Of all of these, we did not do Izumi, the Japanese restaurant. The Izumi on the ship that we were at was pretty much just sushi.
Right.
Which I am fine with, but Nathan will not do at all.
They have some other stuff, but it was largely a sushi restaurant. And frankly, it was... it was in a weird place.
It was
in a really weird place, and it had these like open walls, like dividers that were basically open. So you were kind of sitting in the middle of a food court for an upcharge. It felt weird.
Yeah.
Other ships in Royal Caribbean's fleet, Izumi also includes a teppanyaki. Like, they come and cook on a big flat top, like at your table. I would have really enjoyed that. I was hoping that would be it, but that's not what was on this ship. So, and then we've talked about Jamie's. I was not impressed. I wasn't really impressed with the quality at Chops Grill either. I give the specialty dining to Disney.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't had a bad specialty dining meal ever.
At Disney,
At Disney, on Disney Cruise Line.
Yeah. And we've tried Palo, we've tried Palo Steakhouse, and we've tried Remy. We have not tried Enchanté at all. The menu that we've seen just does not appeal to us at all.
Right. And that changes. So hopefully at some point the menu will adjust and we'll have a bit more that they're offering that is kind of in our palate that we're interested to try out. I mean, don't get us wrong. It's not like we're expecting comfort food every meal. In fact, we enjoy being pushed out of our normal cycles of foods and selections. And so like Remy did that for us. It's not something that we'd normally order, but Enchanté just hasn't quite been there.
Yep.
That said, hands down, Disney wins specialty dining.
Yep.
Just 100%. 100%.
Next, we have what we call quick service food.
Right. So on Royal, you have things like Sorrento's, which is a pizza restaurant. You have the Dog House. You have a smaller buffet called the Solarium Bistro. These are all foods that are included. And they're okay. I mean, it's not horrible. It's just they're good food.
Yeah.
I think the equivalents over on Disney would be all the stuff that you get up on deck.
I missed that. I missed having stuff up top on the pool deck.
Now, there was a place up on top on the pool deck called Fish and Chips that was on Ovation of the Seas, but it was a paid upcharge.
Yep.
You had to pay for that versus if you want to go get your barbecue or whatever you want on the Disney ship, you just walk up and get it.
Yep.
And I think for that reason, Disney, at least in my mind, gets to win because some of that stuff is really good. I mean, let's face it, Disney Cruise Line chicken tendies, like that's like crack. It's
like
addictive.
what now? It's addictive. Yes.
Yes, it's addictive.
Buffet.
So this is the Windjammer on most, if not all, of the Royal Caribbean ships versus Cabanas or Marceline Market, depending on which ship you're on Disney. I mean, they're both pretty good, I think.
Yeah, I think Disney has more overall options.
Yep.
And I don't know what the allergy options are on the Disney Cruise Line, but we did talk to somebody about the allergy options at Windjammer and how a lot of it was mixed in with the regular stuff, or you couldn't tell when gluten-free stopped and started. And, and the staff didn't really know what was and what wasn't either.
Whereas Disney goes above and beyond in
They're
terms
very
of
careful.
allergy accommodations and pointing out what's what. And
I think there were a lot more choices at Cabanas. I thought I enjoyed the layout of the Windjammer one, but it was there's just not a lot there. We only went for breakfast. We didn't go for lunch or dinner any times.
I think Marceline Market has a kind of a more comparable, updated feel to what we experienced on Ovation of the Seas.
That's true.
So this is where the cruise ship itself and how old it is and what generation of design it is, this impacts. And so I think they're both pretty decent food in terms of quality. I think the experience of being in that large eating area for a buffet for like breakfast is pretty comparable between the two cruise lines. You know, and it has a lot more to do with the ship than anything else.
Yeah.
But I think Disney just has more options available.
Yeah. And Disney doesn't have anybody saying washy washy before yummy yummy.
Oh my gosh. That staff member was, I mean, she was awesome. But
She was a little too bubbly for the Novox.
yes, that's a personal thing.
Yes, that's totally a personal thing.
But super early in the morning, you've got the super bright and energetic, bubbly personality greeting everybody as you go into the buffet for breakfast, and you know, washy washy before yummy yummy, happy morning, and it's just
Happy
like,
morning.
yeah, stick it. Like,
We're not morning people, just in
No.
case you didn't know.
if you haven't figured that out, yeah. I think the other thing I just want to call out, though, about our experience in the restaurants and elsewhere on Royal is they've got people walking around in the restaurants trying to upsell you on like, hey, let's go do this tour, go do this experience, go do whatever. Like they're actively,
Dining packages. Yeah.
Yeah, they're actively trying to sell you stuff. It just leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah. Disney does this for pictures. That's about it. Like if you're doing
Right.
restaurant pictures. But
Right.
the times that we were in main dining and then we were in the pub, I think there's one other time we had people try to upsell us stuff while we were sitting down enjoying our meal.
It was not welcome, not the most welcome thing. Let's move on. Let's talk about the bars.
The bars.
And I think overall they're pretty comparable.
Yeah.
I think some of the decor on some of the spaces, well, this goes back to a specific ship. So I think it's kind of comparable. Now, I give Royal Caribbean a huge win over Disney in this area because you can do a drink package.
Yeah.
I really like being able to not have to pay every time you get something, you know,
Yeah.
at a bar. It was really welcome, really enjoyable. Frankly, it helps you budget for your cruise a little better by not having to worry about that. Disney, you do have sodas and everything available to you kind of 24/7. You do have to pay for sodas if you don't have a drink package. You know, they have a sodas and stuff drink package, and then they have a alcoholic drink package for adults.
For Royal.
Right, for Royal. If you want to have the same kind of experience as what you have on Disney, then you do need to at least get the sodas drink package to kind of have a comparable experience. But I really loved having basically a prepaid budget for drinks, for alcoholic drinks. And yeah, I miss that.
Disney does have, you can do a wine package for dinner, and they do have a beer package available as well. But they do not have overarching for any and all drinks.
Right. And the beer package on Disney, just so we're clear, is you buy a 12 pack or whatever of beer, and you can put it in your fridge in your room.
Yeah.
Like it's not a beer package where I can go get so many beers a day at a bar or something like that. So Royal Caribbean gets a big win in this category, at least for me. And I think for Alicia.
Yep. More with regards to the bars. The pubs, etc., are an upcharge for food on both. Though Disney does put out at times a little buffet where you can just go and snack, and that's no cost.
Right.
Like around happy hours, they'll have munchies and stuff available.
Right. That was not happening on Royal.
No.
If you wanted something to eat in one of the bars or pubs, you were paying for it.
On to adult spaces.
Yeah. On Royal, this is really the solarium, which is kind of like the Cove space on Disney ships where it's supposedly 18 plus. The solarium experience is the same thing. It used to be 16 plus, and they've recently changed it to 18 plus. Appreciated that.
And the solarium is a very large space and has nice pools, nice seating, a lot of different seating options, but it is always full. You can never find a spot unless you're there at like 7:30 in the morning and then stay there the entire day. You can't find a spot.
Yeah, didn't like that.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. I would say that the Cove area and the Cove pool or the Cove, that whole, bar and all the rest of that on the various Disney ships is much smaller, but there's always room and there's always space available because Disney's more focused on families' experiences, and families are usually more often staying together, and there aren't as many adults going to go do stuff without their kids. And so there's just not as much demand. So it's smaller on Disney, but in our experience, at least, it's been easier and not as crowded to do stuff in the Cove than it was in the solarium.
The solarium is also, it's enclosed and kind of reminds me of a greenhouse. Well, it's a solarium, so that's what it is.
Now, this is different depending on the ship. So
This is true.
The location of the solarium and the design and everything is very different based on the ship on Royal, just like it is on Disney.
Yeah.
But on the one we were on, it was huge. It was right up
Yeah.
at the front of the ship. It was really quite nice.
It was nice. And the Quiet Cove is not usually enclosed. There may be some areas underneath something, but I haven't seen it enclosed.
Right. The other big difference when we're talking about adult spaces between Royal and Disney is the casino. There's not a casino on Disney ships. There's a casino on pretty much every other cruise line ship across the board. Royal is no exception to that. I appreciated, at least on Ovation of the Seas, that you didn't have to walk through the casino to get to other things that you might be interested in. So that was kind of a welcome design. We walked through there once, I think, on the first day when we were getting on, or maybe it was while we were in port in Seattle or something like that. And we were like, okay, cool. It's a casino, and never saw it again. Yeah. So there are other ships where it's more front and center, and they're really pushing you into the casino. At least on the Ovation, I appreciated it not being kind of forced on me like that.
Yeah.
But it is a difference. If you really want to go to Sea and Gamble, Disney's not your cruise line.
We did have one of the staff members say, "Have you gone to the casino yet?" And we're like, "No." They're like, "Oh, you should go to the casino. That pays our wages." Just kind of off the cuff, kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give the house your money, please.
Yeah. Royal Caribbean does have more live music, I think, than Disney does.
Yes. Although I will caveat that with some of the live bands had many tracks that were banned in a box that they were just playing along with. So there is much more live music. I would say that as a general statement on Disney, what has been live has been better. It's not to say that there were a lot of bad experiences or
No, we didn't have,
low quality on Royal, but there were some for sure. Like,
yeah.
and we're musicians. We get picky about stuff like that. So, I think the quality of music is probably a little higher for what does get included in Disney, but you're going to have more of it on Royal.
I think there's more genres available on Royal too.
Yeah. I really loved having kind of like a Latin Cuban bar that was, doing a lot of Latin music quite often, or some jazz, or, they had a live cover band on many nights in one of the other large music venues, and on the Royal ship. I enjoyed that. And that's kind of what we're saying. There's a lot of music always going on the Royal Caribbean ships.
Something we noticed was that on Royal, the bars didn't seem to have an age limit.
Not that they were underage serving, but
no. No, like going into the bars after 8:00, you still had kids there, just not like up at the bar, but in the seating area in the lounge.
Right. Versus, after 8 or 9 o'clock on a Disney ship, like those spaces become adults only and kind of welcome. Now, there weren't nearly as many kids on the Royal ship, so it didn't make as big of a difference, but it's a thing. Yeah. All right, let's talk kind of our pools and onboard activities.
For extra stuff on the ship, activities to do, I think maybe paid activity type things, I think Royal wins on this regard because they have, on this ship that we were on, they had rock climbing. They had the Flow Rider, which is like the little surfing type thing that you can do. They had the North Star, which is an arm that brings you 300 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
Way up high.
It's like a gondola on a stick.
Yeah. And they also had iFly, which is an indoor skydiving experience.
Yeah. So you're going to have, if you're looking for the more adventurous things to do on a cruise, Disney's not that kind of cruise line. They don't have the go-kart tracks on board. They don't have
mini golf. Well, they do have mini golf on some of them. They do have
mini golf. Yes. I thought the kind of sporting venues where you can play basketball or ping pong and stuff like that, I think they were pretty comparable between the ships. So there is that kind of stuff on Disney as well. But yeah, the kind of these more extreme sports you're going to find more on other cruise lines, including Royal. Disney has kind of like basically a feature water slide or two on the ships. On Royal, at least on Ovation of the Sea, there wasn't a big feature water slide. There was a great splash pad with a kind of a play area on it for the littles, but there wasn't that big water slide kind of experience like you see on all the other Disney ships. I think the spas are a push between the two. We've tested both extensively and found them to have their pluses and minuses in terms of wanting to sell you more stuff. But you got to remember, these spas are outsourced on all of the cruise lines, so they're very, very similar in terms of what they're offering and how you're treated. We had great experiences in both. Bingo exists on both as well.
Yes.
So really you're only kind of missing out on the casino if you want to win big bucks when you're on a Disney cruise.
They have similar events like trivia and crafts and stuff like that. I didn't see quite as much family-centric stuff, but I wasn't really scouring the cruise compass on this one.
I think there's events that you could find that are good for folks of all ages.
Entertainment.
I think the performers themselves, the entertainers, were amazing.
Oh, they're phenomenal. The talent.
On Disney and on Royal.
Yes.
The talent is through the roof. They're great folks. We were not impressed with the content of the shows that they were delivering on Royal. When you're looking at what's going on in the main theater, it didn't have that Disney storytelling muscle that they were really executing hard on. So again, this is not a knock on the performers.
No.
What they're executing against just isn't as good.
Yeah. The one show with a obvious storyline was still a little confusing.
Yeah.
The sets were really cool to see, though. One of the other shows that we saw was very Vegas style. There were showgirls.
Yeah.
And it was billed as not a kids show. I don't know why, other than the showgirls wearing stuff. There wasn't anything overtly sexual, I thought.
No. I've seen showgirls dressed a lot more provocatively than what we saw.
And then the other one was like a cabaret style thing. Oh, yeah, it's called Spectra's Cabaret.
Yes.
That was interesting. I wasn't really sure what to think of that one either.
This wasn't in the main theater, though. So this is where Royal has an interesting thing where they have a secondary theater on many of their newer ships. That's at the very stern of the ship, the very back. And it's kind of a multi-story experience. And they've got giant LED screens on robotic arms, and they have kind of a dynamic show space and lots of little stages kind of scattered throughout. And so they can kind of pull an audience more into a show. It was really neat, and Disney doesn't have that. But again, kind of the quality / content of the show is cool.
Yeah.
We talked a bunch about that on our episode about the cruise. So again, go back to episode 95 and you can hear more about that.
we are very much Broadway style show people. I mean,
Yeah.
we just went to Hades Town the other night.
Right.
We have a subscription to the Broadway stuff here in Seattle, and we enjoy that style.
Right.
So-
and Disney scratches that itch for us.
Yep.
Royal really didn't.
Nope.
Let's talk about staterooms. Mm-hmm. So DCL staterooms, if we're talking about a standard stateroom, are bigger. Just hands down, they're bigger.
And they have a split bathroom.
Right.
What I mean by a split bathroom is there are 2 separate bathrooms in a single stateroom. One door has the shower and the
A sink.
and the other door has the toilet and a sink.
Right.
So you can have people getting ready at the same time.
Right. There are some spaces and suites that have this on different royal ships, but by and large, the rooms are just much smaller. They're not as deep. They're definitely a lot more narrow. You know, you're having to do a little shimmy to get around the bed to get past it to go out towards the veranda. We were in originally, based on a recommendation from our friends, I had booked a junior suite, and that seems to be a heck of a lot more comparable, if not maybe a little bit bigger than some of the Disney rooms. But Disney is noted as having some of the nicest accommodations and the biggest standard rooms in the industry. So, I mean, that is a differentiator for sure. A lot of ships on other lines, including Royal Caribbean, are double occupancy only rooms, or maybe you can get double plus one, or, you know, versus pretty much all of the standard rooms that you have on Disney are at least 4, if not 5 people.
Yeah.
And it's just a difference.
We should say that the rooms for RCI are much less expensive for the most part.
Yes, for the it all depends on the itinerary and everything
Yeah.
else, but you can cruise cheaper on Royal Caribbean. Now, if you want to try to match some of the experiences that you get on DCL, you know, you got all of a sudden you need to add, you know, a drink package and this, that, and the other thing, the costs start to add up.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that more here in a little bit. But you could get a cheaper room on a Royal ship than you could on a Disney Cruise Line ship.
Concierge experience.
Yeah. Disney wins this one hands down.
Yep.
The only bonus that I will give to Royal Caribbean is that their concierge folks, their suites, have access to a dedicated restaurant called the Coastal Kitchen. And that's really where we ended up eating the vast majority of our meals because main dining was not really cutting it. And some of the upcharge restaurants were not cutting it for us either. I don't have this problem on Disney. If I'm in concierge, I'm looking forward to going to a main dining rotational restaurant. We love those restaurants. In many of them, there's shows, whether you're talking about Animator's Palette or you're talking about Arendelle or what have you. Like, there's stuff going on in the main dining rooms, whereas in the Royal Caribbean ships, it's just a big dining room. Now, Royal Caribbean does, and many other cruise lines do, have the ability for you to just do what they call an anytime dining, or depending on the cruise line, they'll have a different branding on it, which is basically whenever you want to go have dinner, you go have dinner. Whereas Disney, for main dining, you're either having the early seating or the later seating.
Yeah. Or you're going to the buffet.
Or an upcharge restaurant.
Yeah.
So that is a nice thing when it comes to that we should have mentioned up earlier when it comes to those restaurants, is that you can do anytime dining. But when we're circling back here to the concierge experience, like, the Coastal Kitchen really kind of saved our cruise.
Yes.
And we literally said that to each other a couple times. Like, so thankful we're able to come here and not have to go to main dining or the buffet a lot.
Yeah.
The lounge experience in concierge,
Was disappointing.
uncomparable. Disney wins.
Yes.
Like, just even the original ships that didn't have a concierge lounge, the concierge experience is far superior on a Disney ship than what we've experienced on a Royal Caribbean ship.
The lounge on the Ovation, we went in And it's a gorgeous location. It's at the very back of the boat. And it has panoramic views over there. Lots of seating, lots of comfortable spaces. They do not have somebody staffed there the entire time.
Right.
They do not have food and drinks available the entire time.
Nope.
And what they do have is just water, because drinks are an upcharge
Right.
on RCI. So
Right.
there's no, you couldn't just go in and grab a soda, or they did have a little coffee thing there, but like I wanted a juice or something and they didn't have anything. They had water available and occasionally like a cookie or something like that. So the Disney Concierge Lounge definitely wins on this one, especially on the Wish. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But, you know, when we were having issues with laundry or a couple other things that we were trying to get sorted out, you know, we'd try to go get help and they were like, oh, the guy's not there right now.
Yeah.
Or he had been there and we were there before his scheduled time was up, but he had left early.
I think between the hours of 11:30 and 4 o'clock, nobody was in the lounge. Does that sound right?
Yeah, it's 11 and 4, 11:30 and 4:30, somewhere in that neighborhood. You know, we were trying to get help and there was nobody there. You know, sometimes he leaves early. It was frustrating. Hands down, concierge experience on Disney, just second to none.
Yep. Shopping.
There wasn't as much general sundries and branded stuff on Royal as there was on as you'd find on a Disney ship. You know, there's a huge a lot of that's because, like, let's just be honest with you, Disney has merch and people are all about Disney merch.
Yeah.
Whether it's Disney Cruise Line specific merch or Disney merch in general, right? But even those stores have a bunch of snacks and sunscreen was easy to find, this, that, and the other thing. We went looking for some sunscreen and it was like almost impossible to find anything. And we had to try like 3 or 4 different shops where we thought there might be some stuff. Royal seems like it is really set up for the premium shopping experiences, you know, high-end jewelry, high-end perfumes, watches, things like that. And everything else that you might be interested in is kind of an afterthought. Like their main merch store is probably about as big as our bedroom.
Yep.
It depends. I mean, do you go on cruises for shopping? Like some people do, you know, and Royal, they seem to roll out every evening this huge like table display of merch, or not merch, but of, you know, watches and jewelry and everything else, like on the central promenade. So it was like they really pushed a whole bunch of shopping on you a lot. Well, I think that's where they're getting a lot of money.
Yep.
So it is their business model. I can't fault them for their business model.
No, and arguably Disney has a lot more with regards to the name and what they can sell, what they do sell.
I don't know if there's a winner or a loser here. It's really just what are you after? It's just kind of a stark difference.
Yeah.
Royal is much more like going to a mall.
Last point we have here, cost and value.
Like we said, you can cruise for less money on Royal Caribbean, like just flat out.
Yep.
If you start booking some extras, if you start doing a drink package, if you start doing the key to get some of those priority access things, you're all of a sudden looking at a pretty comparable cost.
To Disney.
To Disney, yeah. When all is said and done, and we look at what we spent on our cruise, and, you know, we've been to the spa a bunch and you know, got the upcharge to the full concierge suite and things like that. We didn't save any money going on Royal Caribbean. No. It would have been the same for us to go sail in concierge on the Wonder as it transited a few days earlier from Vancouver over to Hawaii, and then has since gone on to Sydney. I mean, that's what all these ships are doing.
Yep. One of the pluses for Royal, though, is you can book stuff right away. You don't have to wait for a date. You can also, you pay for stuff ahead of time too. So when we booked the drink package, we paid for it right then. I guess it depends on you and how you like to budget, but paying for some of the stuff up front I enjoyed. I liked having that. It was done. We didn't have to worry about it later at the end of the cruise.
Yep.
Excursions, you pay for them right then and there.
Right. And then if you need to, if anything changes, then they'll credit you back.
Yeah.
You know, that. Whereas Disney is everything is floating against your online account. And then you kind of walk off the ship having paid a big bill at the end.
Yeah.
My preference would be how Royal does it.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we're not going to sail Disney, but my preference, if I had to choose which of the two methods to follow, would be the way Royal does it.
Yeah.
Especially on the booking. You know, being able to book stuff, you know, they didn't have all of the shore excursions or onboard events and things like that available like as soon as possible, but those started trickling in, especially over the last couple months, heading up into the cruise. More and more things would start showing up. And you just check in, you know, every week or so, see what's available, and you start booking some of this stuff. Whereas Disney has made your onboard activities, bookings, and excursions, and all the rest of that stuff much more of like this almost Black Friday-esque kind of event where you have to get in and make sure you register and sign things up, you know, as soon as possible and on X date. I don't like that. I don't like the gamification of it. I don't think it's as egalitarian either. You know, we're first-time Royal cruisers. We could have booked shore excursions as soon as, you know, if they were available, as soon as they booked, and they're available for everybody else to book. So, yeah, I'd love to see Disney take the complication and the emotional nervousness out of the way they do things. You know, we're getting ready to cruise here for Christmas, and we're taking my parents, and we've had number of calls and conversations with my mom about how does she book the right things at the right time, and we're all worried about this, that, and the other thing. And it's just like, there's none of that stress with a Royal Caribbean cruise.
There's a couple of things that Nathan and I were able to book early on our Disney cruise because we are platinum,
Right.
that we couldn't book for his folks because they're not platinum. So Nathan and I got it, but we couldn't get it for them. So
Right. So hopefully we can fix some of that stuff when we get on board.
Yeah, we'll try.
But if you're in Concierge on Disney, you know, you're able to kind of game the system with their assistance, and that you can send your wish list in, you know, ahead of time, ahead of everybody else, and they get it into the system, and it just kind of like magically happens. But I mean, that's a lot of money to pay in to again, the way Royal handles it is just a lot more egalitarian. Everybody's kind of on a more equal playing field.
Royal does take a harder line on itinerary changes and compensation with regards to that.
Yep. Yeah, we've talked about it. You know, our cruise was supposed to have 2 days in Lahaina, and it was billed as a Hawaiian cruise. And obviously, with the devastation that happened with the wildfires that burned through Lahaina, that was canceled. And it was initially, they didn't say what they were going to do, but they just said it was, you know, those port stops were canceled. And it was a week or a week and a half of them saying, no, you can't cancel because it's after your paid in full date. And if you cancel, it's a 75% penalty.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the customer service decision-making there of, these are extraordinary circumstances. Like it's different than, hey, we just missed a castaway or something because of weather. But even with that, Disney's like instantly like, okay, well then you're going to get a $250 onboard credit because we missed Castaway.
Cruise lines do not have to do this though. They really don't.
Have to.
As part of their contract that you sign by booking a cruise, they can change itineraries, they can change ports of call with no notice whatsoever, and they are not required to compensate you anything. However, with customer service being the way it is, and with wanting to keep your customers happy, a lot of times some cruise lines will still do this. They'll compensate whatever. Like Disney will compensate for the most part. I'm sure there's times where they haven't. Like they compensated us greatly on our Panama Canal cruise in 2020.
Yeah. It's not what they have to do, but it's what they do and how they treat their guests. And Disney just is much more customer focused, I think. Whereas I think RCI, if you look at some of the decisions and communications that came out around the itinerary changes, when you look at how they push you for sales in the dining rooms, like they see their customers on Royal as a revenue stream. Whereas on Disney, yes, it's a company. Yes, it's a for-profit company. They're looking to make money. But it's the Disney way of treating your guests the way you would want to be treated. And they know that if they keep that attitude up in customer service, that's why we keep coming back, right? It's why you're paying more, but you're getting that value. And I think that's the thing we want to end with is say, yes, Disney, you're probably going to spend a little more. And it depends. You could get Royal just as expensive. But for us, for the way we cruise and the way our preferences are, that you at Disney, you get more bang for your buck. You're getting a greater value for your vacation dollar. That's our opinion.
Yeah. For how we cruise, for what we like to do.
Yep.
And it's not as overtly obvious on Disney that you are there to provide money to the company.
Right. Yes. That's a great way to put it. So yeah, let us know what you think about Royal versus Disney in the comments. Send us an email, hit us on the social media posts that we put out with these episodes. I'm really interested to hear what your opinions are. We know lots of people who have sailed Royal and who have really enjoyed it, and they go back again and again and again. And I get it. Like there's some great stuff about Royal, and it can be a really great experience. It's not a slam dunk for us that Royal is where our vacation dollars should be spent in the future. I think I'm excited to try another Royal brand, which is Celebrity Cruises. We're going to try to do a cruise in 2025, and those itineraries should be coming out here in the next 2-3 weeks, we think. We want to do an Alaska cruise on the Celebrity Edge, and we're hoping to bring a bunch of our friends along for that. But would we sail Royal Caribbean again?
I think the only way we'd sail Royal Caribbean again is if we were with friends. I don't think we'd go by ourselves or with our immediate family.
Right now, I would encourage our friends, if we were going to do a friends cruise, to do it on Celebrity instead of Royal.
Or Disney.
Or Disney, exactly. So I think to sum it all up, I have uninstalled the Royal Caribbean app from my phone. I don't anticipate needing it again anytime soon, or if ever. Like I'd rather go elsewhere.
There you go.
All right. Well, we are not affiliated with Disney. And with that note that you just heard, we're definitely not affiliated with Royal Caribbean. We're not travel agents. And while we can offer our opinions and suggestions, we recommend working with a travel agent to plan your perfect vacation.
If you have any questions or suggestions, or would like to be interviewed on our show to share your vacation experiences, please send an email to podcast@ourmousecapades.com.
Give us a follow over on social medias. We're at Our Mousecapades pretty much everywhere you look. Give us a rating and review in your podcast app. That really helps people find us.
Thank you for listening. We'll be in your ears next week.
Thank you for flying Star Tours. Bye-bye.